Welcome to another episode of the Take a Step podcast. As we get things kicked off this week, I just kind of want to reiterate the mission of Take a Step, which is to equip and inspire our next generation of leaders to take action on building a firm foundation for their lives. And in this episode, we do such a great job with the story that's provided in Paris Landon. Paris is someone who has such a great and profound mindset that was formed really at the beginning. He was incarcerated at a young age, and he actually sees that as an opportunity, and he's grateful for that opportunity to be able to share his story and pour into the lives of others. He made a name for himself in the fitness industry, then the music industry, and he's now the owner of Woodstock Coffee Company in Woodstock, Georgia, and he's building out Second Chance Coffee, which is an organization designed around providing resources and knowledge for those that were formerly incarcerated to learn how to be an entrepreneur for themselves. So just so much valuable wisdom and insights that Paris brings to the table, and I think you guys will really enjoy this episode. So with that being said, let's dive into this episode with Paris Landon. What's going on, and welcome to the Take a Step podcast. I'm your host, Josh Johnston, founder of Take a Step. It's a community that's focused on bringing together like-minded individuals who are all purpose-driven towards taking action to maximize their God-given potential. If you find value in this podcast, please leave a rating and review on whichever platform you're listening. It really helps us to continue to grow this community and change more lives for the better. Feel free to give me a follow on social media at __take a step __, and reach out to me if you have any questions or just want to connect. With that being said, let's dive in. Paris, what's going on, man? Thanks for taking some time out of your day to come on the Take a Step podcast. I've been excited for this conversation for a while, so thanks for joining.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Like I said, it's kind of been amazing to actually get to connect with you as well, because we spoke about it, and so I'm glad that we're getting to knock that out.
Yeah, awesome. Well, hey, I love kind of opening up the conversation to let you kind of introduce yourself however you see fit. I think when you hear someone kind of introduce themselves, it kind of gives a good just a good look into who they are, what they're focused on, a little bit of their background, and a little bit of just kind of a deep dive into them as a person. So I'll let you kind of take that and run with it wherever you see fit.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not used to being on my laptop, so it's kind of I'm trying to see you and make sure I'm heard. But no, my name is Paris Landon. I am owner of Woodstock Coffee Company, father of four, entrepreneur, and so just somebody who is excited about, doing things in life and getting things done and reaching our purpose. Yeah, man.
Yeah, love that. Awesome. And I'm sure we'll dive into a little more of those mindsets throughout the discussion, but just to kind of dive into a little bit of your background, your upbringing. I know you're a West Coast guy coming from out west. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing, your childhood, and just kind of what brought you to Woodstock from, I think it was Seattle, right?
Yeah, man. Born and raised. I think anyone that knows me knows I represent Seattle pretty tough. Very influential in my life and culture of coffee. So yeah, man, I grew up in North End Seattle, and to two great parents and brothers and sisters, and a decent family, and didn't grow up with a lot, but grew up with a lot of love in the house. So I got into music at an early age, and sports and teamwork, and so all of that was filled with my high school years of playing in orchestra, playing football, and doing that. Obviously went through life. Everyone who knows me knows I was formerly incarcerated. I'm pretty proud of that moment because I've turned it into something that is a great moment for me to speak about. From that point, I kind of got out and really wanted to just be the best version of myself possible. Ended up, starting, a lot of different kind of smaller businesses, and then ended up coming out to Georgia, working in health and fitness for the last, decade or so, running and helping teams be built, and coaching, personal training, and managing that side, and building Woodstock Coffee Company. So in that experience, there's a lot of stories, a lot of triumphs, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and just kind of a lot of things that make who we are and who I am. So yeah, man.
Yeah, I love that. Like you said, I'm sure there's a lot to kind of unpack there with stories and like one of the things you said that I love that stood out to me a ton was you talk about the in your past being incarcerated. You mentioned grateful for being incarcerated. That's a very unique perspective and interesting perspective. I'd love to hear your take on, what does it take to be grateful for that time in your life?
Oh man, a lot of humility, a lot of understanding that um, you're gonna fall and how you get back up. And the whole saying of it's not about what happens to you, it's about how you respond.
Hmm.
I'm living proof of that because honestly, making poor choices can kind of put you in a spin of a poor life, right? And so I think that for me, what I'm grateful for is the fact to recognize that that was a stage that I went through, and that it was a moment that I had a choice to be better. And so each moment, I don't forget those moments, daily as I go through my life or with my family or with my business now. That is a choice. It's a daily thing, right? So when I'm saying I'm proud. I'm proud that I went through something and came through it, and came out a better person, and willing to admit that to people, and also help other people that are not so willing to say that that's a grateful thing, because you may not recognize that at the moment because it sucks, it hurts, you're incarcerated, you embarrassing, all the things
Hmm.
that um, but I hope to be somebody that they can see like, hey, well, this dude, is easily saying it. So I put that out there sometimes when people do, like you said, say, why are you proud of that? And it's because I'm at a moment now where I can hopefully make somebody else realize it's not the end of the world. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's turning what could be a, whether if it's a traumatic situation, something to look back on with regret, and flipping that into an opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever heard the name Catherine Wolfe? She
Captain Roof.
she's been through she's a speaker, but she has been through so many different traumatic situations. She's had multiple strokes, but she's a public speaker now, and does a lot. And I listened to a keynote from her last week where she, just from all of these different medical traumas that she's been through, she talked a lot about how you view your story is what's important, not necessarily the details of your story.
Right.
And
Right.
how, like, your view on that story is saying, hey, this is an opportunity to go out and make a difference in those around me, rather than focusing on, like playing the victim mentality of saying, hey, why'd this have to happen to me? Like, why am I put in this situation? I'm sure a lot of that comes up, and to be able to flip that mentally and say, hey, no, I'm not going to choose to focus and dwell on the negatives in that, but what's the opportunity in this situation?
Yeah, it's and I'm not going to say there's not obviously the negative side that comes with it. It's not
Mm-hmm.
always flowers, right? But I mean, I think that just addressing topics like how do you get through that, and especially being someone who was built by faith, it was very detrimental to me. Just making sure that I understood that I was always looking for my purpose and making sure that I was aligned with what my Creator had in line for me. And so that just is a thing that was important to me, right? And not saying that everyone has to have that background or that belief in that, because ultimately you have to yourself want to be better, right? And
Yeah.
that starts with, even if you're religious or if you're not religious, you have to want to be better. And it's a self battle, right? There was days where you're fighting with yourself, saying, hey, no one else believes in me. Why should I believe in me? So I think that those days come, and I just now look back at those, and it is a driving force for me to kind of move forward with any of my ever efforts, like Second Chance Coffee. Now I get
Yep.
to proudly say I'm going to be hiring people that were formerly incarcerated, and promoting that portion of the business for Woodstock Coffee Company. So yeah, yeah.
Love that, man. Love it. So let's dive into it a little bit. What brought you out to Atlanta? What brought you out to the East Coast, changing up the vibe a little bit?
It's a little weird. So what's crazy about me is I came for 7 days and didn't end up staying. So I had a 7 day, just like kind of, I was going to come hang out with one of my mentors that was really beneficial to me in health and fitness. Those that know me know that I've been in health and fitness for a long time. And so that was, man, 12, 14 years ago, I want to say.
Hmm.
And I came out I was an entrepreneur and wanted to open up a gym. And so I reached out to someone who was, a mentor to me, and taught me a lot. And he said, hey, there's opportunity out here. Come hang out with me for a week. We'll just kind of hang out. I was like, let's do it. I said, I want to get involved in buying a gym and all these great dreams
Hmm.
and crazy stuff. And he said, well, let's come hang out, and we can kind of talk about that. So that ended up being, a decade later of working in that industry here, and also, building a family, right? I had my first kid. Her birthday was 2 days ago on the 13th, like I told you, and
Hmm.
three more since then. So that's been just kind of how my life has stayed here. But what brought me out kind of was initially that drive just to kind of, again, man, like, I think tying to finding purpose, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what like I think that was me. Like at Seattle, you got to remember, I was doing well, but I've never. There's been parts of my life where I've never been satisfied at just being where I was at. Right?
Yeah.
I've always wanted to find more. I've known for 20 years that I would be where I'm at or want to be where I'm going to today. What we're talking about,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That itch never stopped for me till I like saw progression in my life, and it took a decade even getting here to really now say, okay, I see where that came. And that's why I stayed. I didn't stay for no great reason or anything. And then the fact I wasn't even really my best self, I was still not sober yet, and now I'm 10 years plus sober, right?
Hmm.
So, drink free or whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
But it was none of these things that besides me just trying to be a better person and kind of just like trying to really tap into who I was on the path to be and not feeling comfortable until I kind of was moving each step there, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
I
was a
love
long
it.
answer, but yeah, man.
No, I love it. I love it. So outside of your mentor, what did you have any other ties to Atlanta, or did you just know that it was an area that you had on your mind for a while and want to just go ahead and take that step?
No. So like, never really. I mean, obviously, me being black, here's about Atlanta, music scene, and I'm a musician, so grew up playing. So I was like, okay, well, Atlanta has, good music scene going on. And again, any of those that know me know that I come from a church background. So my grandfather's a pastor in Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
And so I would be going there in the summertime and just kind of saying, wow, I like the energy of the South. And the funny part of it is like, truthfully, like at the time that I was coming out here, I was finishing doing some musical stuff and recording. And I was jumping into a stage where I was really getting into blues and really wanted to come be in the South, understand how that actual experience was created, just kind of energized off of that. So I took that week-long thing to kind of use that as my excuse to kind of get that side of me for the recordings that I was doing.
Nice.
And that was just kind of in combination with it, right? But yes, I didn't have an idea for Atlanta per se, but I knew that when I came to the South, I was like, man, and it was a good time for me to switch my life up, right? Like,
Hmm.
man, like again, like my story is ups and downs and ups and downs. I don't think I'll ever stop, preaching about coming from the bottom
Yeah.
up because, even though I went through prison and got out of prison, I still wasn't like right, I
Hmm.
wasn't just really like moving forward. I was just like, not making the best choices with relationships and people around me, but I was still saved and still had this purpose. And if you talk to me, I was, still a great version of myself, but just not the best yet, right? So I think I knew that and I was like, man, I've got to switch the scene up for me and just kind of leave everything. And just like when I went to prison, everything I left from took it from and I had reset. I think it was a good monumental step for me to kind of reset too. So yeah.
Got it. Cool. So when you made the switch to Atlanta, was it all music and fitness at the time? Were those the two main sources of what your days were composed of?
Man, it was really all, yeah, that was it, all fitness, music, and drinking, at the time. And it
Yeah.
was just kind of like, that was what, at the age of my life, I was just, I had never really been, I'd always, coming from Seattle where I was recording, performing, touring, music was a whole big thing, right? And so coming out here was like, I never really lived on my own, per se,
Hmm.
like just me. I've always been responsible for having the big old houses and studios and and having people living with me because of the thing that I had going on, but never just me by myself. And so getting to kind of have that time was really crucial to my development. And so I was just fitness and really just diving into, when I say mentoring, just really learning how to be a full operator of a business,
Yeah.
and I wasn't making a lot of money. I was, really just kind of going through trying to figure out how to be a complete operator of a business and understanding all those dynamics, like from having to be a janitor to someone who runs a P&L to, to someone
Yeah.
who coaches people to all in the same day. And it was not like, so it was like a fully immersed, like entrepreneurship mind frame that I was in.
Hmm.
And that was what I was on. I was just like, man, I'm going to build the best teams of coaches. And as if, you're in health and fitness. So, if you're in health and fitness, you've got to find the best way to motivate people to be the best version of themselves anyway, which ties to me as the leader anyway. So I
Yeah.
think it just clicking. And it
So
was like,
when you were in fitness, were you a coach? I think from what our conversations in the past, I remember you saying you trained coaches, right?
man, so initially, obviously, I'm athletic. That was my thing. I was an athlete, football, baseball, basketball, anything you do it, I did. But getting out, I really wanted to coach people. And coming from Seattle, we have a very, very, very high mark for personal training coaches. You had to have all these degrees and all these things. And so I didn't have that getting out of prison. All I had was just kind of like myself and my hustle.
Some
And
knowledge.
so I couldn't, yeah, that's it. And I didn't even have like I just had the passion that I knew that I could train people, but that wasn't how it worked. And one of my first mentors, man, Andrea Perez, I wanted to be a director of fitness. And that was my whole goal, was to be a director of fitness, because back then it was just this huge mark and, 6-figure earning jobs. And I knew I could do it in downtown Seattle. But it wasn't that easy, because they said you had to have a degree, you had to have all these things. And I was like, well, I don't have that. So they put me in sales. And when they put me in sales, I was like, dude, I don't want to sell things. Dude, I don't want to sell things. So, but thank God that what it taught me was to have a resilience, just worked on my resilience, of like, really building, like, to hear the word no was not no, was just, not phrased right, or, all these things. It just took me to a whole sales path of like just hardcore sales. And I had no idea. I'm just fresh out, just like, they just give you a phone book and they're like,
start dialing.
Real seriously, your finger doesn't go off the hook. You're dialing 1,000 calls a day. And if you don't have 10 appointments, leave, go home. You're not hit for, and I was just like trying to hang it, but I was good at it, right? Because I learned what not to say, and I was young and I was passionate. And so that kind of led me to where I was able to study and become a coach and work with National Academy of Sports Medicine, and then able to leave to work with Gold's Gym as a director of fitness, my goal, right? And becoming a director of fitness, I had the opportunity to build and develop teams of personal trainers. And so when I did that, I really used what helped me, which was my relationship building, as a tool to help coaches get the best out of their clients, right? So for me, it was a way that I could directly say, listen, man, it's not about what you know in this book. It's about this person, about how you can help them change their life, because they can read the books online. They can do all the things somebody's told them on stuff before, but you've got to be somebody that makes change act, right? Acting, we're talking about acting. You got to make that. And that's not going to, so I worked on that side of coaches and developing them and become a director of fitness. And again, going back to what brought me to Georgia, it was, one of the mentors that I just butted heads with, was the area vice president. And he would come in and say, you're not good. And I'd be like, well, I'm leading everyone in this whole thing. I've never done this before. And, and I'm your top producer. And what do you mean I'm not good? I quit. He said, you didn't quit. You're not, I want to lie. These were the dynamic conversations we had this time. But, and so it kind of built me up to understand my humility. Like, listen, man, like, I'm good, but like, how am I going to be good if I can't even at least just have a chase somebody that's better than me and learn how to get to that level first, right? So I'm good at what I'm good at, but I need to also, again, humble myself.
Yeah.
So that's where when, again, boom, I quit and I'm on doing music, and I'm good at music too. So I can go for a year or two touring and playing music, and that's cool too. And again, not happy with my purpose. So at the end of the day, what really just that itch for me was like, so what did I do? I reached back out to that mentor. I said, hey man, what you got going on? I want to buy a gym now, man.
Yeah.
So you want to buy a gym, dude? Last time I couldn't tell you nothing, man. You were just the top producer. You were Mr.
Yeah.
I said, well, I want to buy something now, man. Can you teach me again a little bit more? And that's how that, you heard that part of that story. Why for 7 days, kind of was a little bit more like, I was like, man, this is great. I'm learning like this. Oh yeah, I'll sleep on the floor. And I did. I slept on the floor. I had no place to live, bro. Again, like I stayed in a hotel for a month until I could scrape up enough money to get just a place across the street from the gym. And I couldn't afford anything in there. So I slept on the ground in that place. And I wouldn't allow myself to get a bed until I made sure that I reached my goals, you know what I'm saying? Because for me, sleeping was a necessity that, was going to have to come after my success, and I had to push myself. So there's a lot of pushing myself that kind of got to where it's at. And then in that time, once I developed that, he then, got let go from the gym. And it was just me out here in Georgia with nobody and a kid. So that's when Woodstock Coffee Company, I was like, I've got to find a way to where if somebody decides they don't want me to work for them anymore, I can live, because now I have a daughter, and that's what Woodstock Coffee. So in my garage, the same garage that you see right now, that was where I started my first roast. Yeah. And my friend from Seattle that was incarcerated me came out and came to my garage, and he ended up moving out here and helped me do this. He's now back in Seattle. This is a decade ago. So it's been a lot of story involved in that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, and I want to dive into Woodstock Coffee in just a second, but I mean, from the fitness industry, I mean, because for me, I'm sure you have, a similar mindset to it, but when I first started to take my fitness serious and actually, like, you talk about making change act. It's easy to have the knowledge. It's easy to want, say you want something, have this great plan put in place on how you're going to get there. But until that mindset actually takes action, then the results will not follow unless action is actually taking place. For me, I saw so many parallels between my physical fitness and life as a whole. Whether if it's building out disciplines, whether if it's withstanding challenge, whether, when you work out, like the actual, biomechanics of working out, the muscle has to break down before it grows. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's same thing with life. Like we need to experience the hardship and the challenge before we actually see the growth. And I just saw so many ties to that. So for you, like what were some of your biggest takeaways from the fitness industry that proved to be, helpful and beneficial for your life as a whole moving forward?
And what's funny is I'm still once you're in it, you're never out of it, right? Like I'm still studying ASM stuff. I'm still coaching now. I'm actually partnering with people and helping coaches still on the side. I'm an entrepreneur, so that's one of my next ventures is getting involved back that side of it. Because once you learn that skill, once you change somebody's life through health and fitness, it changes you in a way. You're like, wow, this is something that this person may have never had the opportunity to do. And, I was so serious about it, man, about changing lives through fitness, man. So I think that is something that today is what made me a great leader. I'm not saying a great leader, but like study great leaders to figure out what it was. And it was ultimately about being passionate about helping people change for me that made me realize entrepreneurship is going to be something I always wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So when you say what was the biggest takeaway, I think like, for example, I started off as a coach so I could understand, and I wasn't able to have the best knowledge, money, circumstances, but I had the passion. So I think a lot of people, just like the coffee shop stuff, in the gym field, they share this parallel. Everybody is so enticed by what they think it's about. Everybody wants to train because they think they get to train cute people, and everyone wants coffee shops because they think they're so cool and make a lot of money just having slanging coffee, right?
Yeah. But
the real behind the scenes of it is that, man, a lot of these people that tell you that they want to be on top of Mount Everest wouldn't even climb Mount Kennesaw with you. So what was detrimental to me was really setting people over what I call small mountains. So people tell me they want to do something. So they tell me they want to start a business. I'm like, okay, you want to start a business, and I'm sure you want to be a trillionaire or whatever, right? But do you have it registered as a business? Well, no, but I'm going to be a millionaire. Let's start with some small mountains. So same thing with health and fitness. It was, I want to lose 100 pounds. All right, awesome. When's the last time we, just let's break it down to the basics. You know what I mean? Let's just start, at step one here, right? And give them something they can do and that they know that they can do, right? They're not going to stop eating cheeseburgers by tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay? But you can go from 5 to 4. That's only one difference. You're telling me I don't need to stop it all right now? No, I don't want you to stop right now, because what that's going to do is make it unrealistic. I want to see you go from 5 to 4 for 3 weeks straight.
Yep.
Because you've been doing it for 30 years. So let's just go 3 weeks, going one less. Teach you how to understand that, if you want this, you're going to have to work. It's not going to be easy, but it's not going to be something that's going to come overnight. So I think small mountains for me have always been what life has presented me with, right? Like I could never just start a coffee company. I had no money, had no resources. So I had to climb small mountains and get little things here and there. And so I learned that from the fitness industry. Yeah. Before I could ever tell somebody to lose 100 pounds, we had to talk about the daily things that they were doing that amounted to that totality of the situation and take small steps. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, no, that's a great takeaway, because for me, it brings me back to the idea of like, what's the best plan for anything in life, whether if it's fitness, whether if it's your nutrition, whether if it's starting a business, your relationships, what's the best plan? It's one that you're going to stick to. And in order to be able to stick to something, you need to make it attainable and sustainable and something that's going to have longevity. And if you tell someone who they're like you were saying, their diet, they eat a cheeseburger for lunch every day, or if you tell someone who hasn't stepped foot in the gym in 10 years to say, hey, we're going to start this weight loss journey, you're going to start working out in the gym for an hour and a half a day, hitting the cold plunge, hitting the sauna, and doing all this. Well, all of that is probably a good plan. How realistic is that? Right. And you can go down this rabbit trail and say, oh, well, they need to harden their mindset. They have a limiting self beliefs. But at the end of the day, that first step, that first action needs to be something that's going to be very attainable and make sense and realistic for them, so that as they do that, they can say, hey, I can do that. I can take one step. Okay, now we take that one step for, like you said, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And then once that becomes the new normal, all right, let's push it that one step further. Let's limit it back from all right, we went from 5 cheeseburgers to 4 cheeseburgers. Now let's see if we can get to 2 maybe and try that out for size, and then go from there and grow that from there. And over time, those many steps, those small mountains like you were talking about, turns into the Mount Everest down the road.
And yeah, because I mean, ultimately, a lot of people, I think, in the coaching industry, which is something that is so parallel to a lot of things I do day to day, but like we talk about like all these accumulation of small things making the bigger totality of it, right? And it's just never so apparent that in health and fitness, right? Because think about it, 30 years or 20 years or 10 years, people will condition themselves to do terrible habits. But then if I said, hey, we're going to spend 5 years getting out of those habits, it would be no one would ever want to do that. They would never want to work out, because they would say, what, 5 years to get there? And I would say, well, yeah, how long did it take for you to get here? And they would be rude, but I'd be like, no, I mean, let's just be realistic here, right? You want something magical to happen, right, without really putting in the work. And I think a lot of people, so I think transparency with a lot of things is true. Like, listen, like I care so much that I'm not going to let you set a goal that you can't reach. That's a bad coach. And so I would tell people in front of me all the time with coaching or anything, I say, well, the telltale of a good coach is not what I do when you're with me. This has no bearing. Like, I'm going to work with you for 3 months. You're going to lose weight. You're going to lose X amount per week. It's going to be awesome. I can guarantee that, because you're with me 4 times a week. That's a given. The telltale of a good coach is if they can make that happen. But I'm not a good coach. I'm a great coach, which means the telltale of me is for 3 to 30 years after you work with me. If you check in with me after 2 years and you're still applying the principles that we taught about your lifestyle and how to do health and fitness, now I'm a great coach. So call me back each year and let me know how we're doing on the lifestyle, how I'm doing. That's how I get my testimonies. Not when you're with me. I expect you to lose weight and get great with me. I'm a coach. I'm going to run you around. You could run me around the gym and I would lose weight and get in shape. You just told me to go up and down like a drill sergeant. You're not a great coach. Yeah. You're just somebody who tells people what to do. And so I think that kind of mind frame for me, kind of like as I started learning that, it was really more like learning about how long-term effects take a lot of day-to-day planning of the small things. You know what I mean? And giving people like, this is where you want to be, right? But there's steps to get there. And just because we're at this moment here doesn't mean that this happens overnight. And so along that path, you need to recognize where you're growing at. They're called growth points in my life. I call them growth points. And so I pick out 4 or 5 growth points. And people like to say the big one, which is money, right? But they never tell you about their spiritual growth points or their personal growth points or their relationship growth points. They just say the ones that make everyone else want to focus on them, the money or the success ones. But I think breaking down the other growth points in their life really put things into perspective. Because what if you made $1 million as a business person, but you died because you had a 40% BMI?
Yeah.
What's really important now, right? So I think those things, man, are just what make coaches good like yourself. And, I've kind of watched, man, what you do. And I know that you're a coach and a leader too. So
love it. No, that's good stuff, dude. I love that. Let's talk about Woodstock Coffee. Tell me about the very beginning. Take me back to its roots.
Boom. So like the cool thing with me is like all these stories are just me. There's like no like separatism, all the same thing of me coming from Seattle, man. So I grew up, again, 2 parents. My dad's a musician. My mom was just, crazy, in that era of the 80s. I grew up in a wild circumstance where I was born at like 6 or 7 months pregnant, not even knowing. My mom just, was kind of just and then from that point forward, it was like every day I had coffee since I was 1 year old. I think I tell that to people. And it's no joke. It's the truth. I know my mom gets embarrassed because it makes it sound like she's crazy, but you got to understand we're in the 80s now, and I'm from Seattle. So it's just that was the time it was. And so, because I had to get up so early, and this is part of the story, man, is that like I was so premature. I have hearing loss and I had eardrum issues because I was born at like 6 months, right? And so they made me get up every morning and go to this Infant Health and Development Center to study premature babies. And so my mom be up all night listening to records, and you see those records in my coffee shop now. Those Led Zeppelins, you know what I mean?
So those are your mom's records?
Yeah, they're not special enough to be those, but those are the replicas, the real ones are in Seattle, right? But she bought those for my shop, as part of like, the
That's
Carlos
cool.
Santana one. So yeah, man. So every morning, like she's up all night, you know, drinking, listening to records, and my dad's playing music at nightclubs, right? And so this dynamic of when I was a kid, she put coffee in my baby bottle, and like put like this much, and then the rest was milk because I had to be up at 6 in the morning, getting studied to be, you know, because I was so premature, right? So, and that just happened every day. And my mom was an avid coffee drinker, so every single day in Seattle, like that I would wake up, she'd give me a cup of coffee, and that's just like how, like if we were to be there, that's how she would probably greet you today, is with a cup of coffee, and that would just be, I guess, a normality. So it's part of a cultural thing for me. And that's
we'd get along pretty well.
But that's, hey man, it's really funny because I don't know if people, like the younger culture now sometimes doesn't understand how serious coffee was in Seattle through the 80s, 90s. You're talking about the birth of this whole whole coffee field. And so I had friends, dads that roasted coffee. And I mean, there was, you know, obviously the rise of Starbucks. So that was just, you know, initially just a huge thing on the scene. So everybody was, you know, we were drinking dark roast coffee at the time, which was pivotal in how kind of I do some of my roasts now. And it was just like this dark roasted coffee that had to be strong and bold. And that's what we thought great coffee was.
Yeah.
So
we can go off on a tangent on that, because anybody who knows me well knows that we don't put cream and sugar in our coffee around here. We drink it dark, we drink it black, and we drink it strong.
Man, you know, that's been man, such a debate, and it's so funny because I think people expect me to be this like have to be one way coffee person, you know?
Yeah.
Which I grew up with. Now when I look back at it, so much like just dark coffee, you know, it was just dark coffee roasted, and actually a lot of times there was like creamer in it and a lot of sugar, right? Because I remember as a kid, so it was just like this sugary thing, and then at the end, I think as I got a little bit older, there was no sugar in it, and now I drink no sugar or milk in my coffee. I've never had.
Love it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't tend to enjoy long bouts of coffee that is light roasted for long bouts, because I feel like the city side kind of doesn't stay cool with me. And then on the other end, some of the darker stuff, I just, you know, I like to be right in the middle now. Now I think I found more of like a medium, like a nice medium approachable side that I like. So
yeah, love it. So you said it started out of your garage. What prompted you to really start to say, hey, obviously you like coffee growing up and it was part of your upbringing, but what prompted you to say, hey, I could start my own business out of this?
Well, I mean, so again, kind of, you know, tying in that story where, you know, my mentor had just gotten let go of a privately owned gym, and I was like, wow, you know, and this was someone who it was amazing at their job. They were not let go probably because of how their performance. It was, you know, a personal situation. And so I just realized at that point in time, you know, I'm out here in Georgia. I don't have any backup plan. I have kids, like, and at that time it was just like, it was really important to me, you know, coming from a single parent house. So my parents had, you know, kind of split. So my mom was single parent, but it made me realize that no one had owned any property in my line, right? We didn't have any homeowners. And so that was one of the things that to me was important, was like, I didn't want my daughter at the time, you know, that was my first kid. I didn't want to have a kid that didn't own anything. So I went on this tangent of like, really just trying to own a home. And then once I did that, I realized I was like, you know, I don't want to be able to be stuck out here and have somebody to say they don't want me to work for them anymore. And that happened like a year ago. Yeah. That same gym a year ago was like, just like without any notice, like maybe 20 days notice, like, hey, we're selling the gym and you're done for, and bye. Yeah. After 12 years, right? So, you know, so it's funny because like I told you, 12 years ago, I was on this mission of like, hey man, I got to do something, because ultimately I know I can only depend on me. And so I knew at some point in time, and plus keep in mind, I also was entrepreneur, the fact that I do songwriting and scoring and producing and stuff like that. So I had streams of income coming in from that side of it. So that was always, I had in Seattle a production company that does that, you know, songwriting and all that stuff. So that's what I did in Seattle. So I had already entrepreneurial stuff going on anyways. And so I knew that out here, I was like, well, something that I want to do is roast coffee. And I was like, well, you know, does anyone out here do it? At the time, it wasn't really that big of a deal, you know, and I didn't have any money. So I just, you know, borrowed a few $1,000 from my mom or whatever it was, and got a little small coffee roaster right here in this garage. It was like, I'm gonna roast coffee. And I started kind of, you know, burning up beans and like kind of experimenting, and worked with Mill City Roasters and really developed kind of like my skill set. And then it just grew there, and I kept roasting and delivering coffee. And the farmers market in Woodstock was pivotal to me really kind of getting my product out there.
Yeah.
And me and my pops came down, man, and really helped me with my cold brew, the production of that. And so like we just kind of started getting this staple, like really strong, like, strong cold brew that was just like really smoky rich, and we liked that. And so we ended up doing well at the farmers market and getting a lot of people on our recurring and a lot of events and things like that. And then when that same gym that I helped come build decided, without letting me know, like, hey, bye, basically, you're gone and we don't have nothing for you. It was a month before like Christmas, right? And now this is a place I worked for like over a decade, like 12 years. So it really just put in perspective. It was like at that time I was like, listen, either I can go work for someone else and start, doing the same thing, and then maybe 12 years later they'll decide they don't want me to work for them.
Yeah.
Or I can, put it all in. And I know you're religious, so for me, I have to say this because, for me, it was pivotal. Like I put it all on God, right? Because I didn't have anything. So even in prison, there's 2 times in my life to where like it was just defining, right? Super defining. Obviously, getting locked up, we can talk a whole podcast about prison stories. That's cool. But the other one is, when this place decided they didn't want me anymore, and, I had no means, I had no resources, I didn't have anything. I had 4 kids at this time. Remember, I wasn't one that had 4 now. Boom. I had a home. I owned my home now, right? So it wasn't like I could just go anywhere. And so it was like, God, I just remember saying, hey, you told me to put it all on you. So, and it was like, but this is that moment where there's like I can't put 97% on you. I have to put 100 on you.
Yeah.
I think so much of my life I depended on the 97, and it got me through, and so it made me this lukewarm believer and follower. And I think that I grew so much when I said, well, cool, God, I remember, it was a tearful moment because I was like, this is 100% on you. There's nothing I can do. I don't have the money. I don't have the resource. I don't have nothing to do this. My kid, it's a month before Christmas. There's nothing I could do to stop this. I have nothing. So you have to be 100% on this. And I was like, but I felt a sense of joy because I was like, this is what you've always asked me to do, is to put 100% on you.
Yeah.
And for so many times I've gotten away with 97 in his work. But when I realized that, he spoke to me, he was like, I got you. This is that moment. I said, cool. And it was just pivotal for me because at that point in time, like everything I did from that point and forward made sense for me. It made sense, and it was just like, it was a moment where I was like, oh, I'm gonna do that more. And not only am I do that more, but I made a promise that, to myself, to my career, that if that was allowed to happen, I would continue to tell people, well, I was like, if you free me up to be able to share my story and to be able to help people, I promise you, I will let more people understand that it's possible to do what I just did. I promise you I will do that. And look at us now talking, right?
Yeah.
My coffee shop's running, right? My other businesses are running. I'm okay. My kids are okay. My house is still here. My kids are over on the couches hanging out, right? And I'm here talking with you about how to get people moving. So
yeah, praise God, man. That's incredible. It comes full circle, but it's cool to kind of see how, this one aspect of, going all in on the business and like taking action with faith. And saying, hey, I'm going to take action. I'm going to make every effort I can. God, I trust you. I'm 100% in. And seeing how he provides in that aspect has allowed you to then give him not just the business, but I'm sure every other aspect of your life as well. And trust him not up because he did good by you in your business, and you saw kind of the fruits of your labor and how he came through for you with Woodstock Coffee, for example, but also with the rest of your life as you kind of, go all in with every area of your life. Oh yeah. It's,
we talk about this and I obviously people I'm very transparent with my religion and everything. Yeah. I don't really kind of, but the thing of it is like, I think, a lot of people, they presume there's going to be perfect. Right. Yep. And I think there's a lot of just, you can't not go all in with your creator if you want result. And I think that the reality of it is another part of this whole experience is understand that even if my coffee shop failed, yep, even if my business failed, even if everything failed and I was to, if it was in his will for that to happen, that's all I would need to happen. So when you really are broken down to your worst and to your lowest and you have nothing or whatnot, and you understand that, you walk crazily different because at that way you're like, cool, this can fail, but as long as I'm in alignment with you, I know that it's not your will. So if it's going to fail, it's not for me, then fine, take it. But I'm going to act as if right now and do everything I can like this is your will. Because right now, that's what I see is what your will is for me. So when
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 195% and 200% until you tell me otherwise. And if you take that from me, then it's not in your will. And I gotta believe. If I say that I believe these words that we read and talk about and go and scream about, then I've got to actually show that at some point. And there's
Mhm.
no better way to show that than to say, hey, take it all from me, because at the end of the day, as long as I'm pleasing you, I'm okay.
Yeah,
And
I'm
that's a
so
tough
happy you brought that up. I'm so happy you brought that up because like the if someone chooses to go all in just because they want the result, then they're doing it for the wrong reason. And like my favorite verse, John 16:33, Jesus looks at his disciples and says, "For I tell you these things so that in me you may have peace. You will experience trials and tribulation in the world, but
yeah.
take heart, I have overcome the world." So he doesn't tell us that following him is going to make our life easy and make our life perfect. He actually tells us the opposite.
Right.
Because you follow me, you will go through hard times, and like there will be trials that you will face. But what's the key to peace? It's me, because I've overcome the world. So I think keeping that at the forefront and understanding that everything's not going to be sunshine and rainbows all the time, but you'll have peace, and you'll always have that peace in knowing that the Lord is my shepherd, Psalm 23, and He will guide me through the good times and the bad times.
Well, yeah. I mean, we say it all the time, and I think a lot of people, uh, it's awesome to be a Christian because you get to believe this fairy tale that everything's perfect and you wind up in a place of greatness, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reality of it is Jesus didn't live a very great life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, let's just be real about this. So when we talk about that someone came here, just to die for what, we are going to be going forward, and now at the end of the day, we are acting like it's going to come easy to us. I think this is unrealistic. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that for me, when I look back, especially through all the things that I've went through, thinking like, okay, well, at the end of the day, you still sent your son in to die for me. So at the end of the day, I've been very fortunate to have that mind frame, but it didn't come with understanding that there's going to be falling down and getting back up.
Yeah.
And there still is. There still is every single day. It's just like you said, it's how you view it, right?
Yeah.
Like you remember, like I remember we were talking before, and you were saying that we had talked about that in the market a long time ago. And you were talking about this podcast and knocking out, and I was like, okay. And we were going to connect
Yeah.
and just you persevered, man. So like to me, like that's a good example of I don't know what happened in your life, but I remember when we met up next, you were like, man, married, everything's good, and I was like, wow. And now you have your podcast.
Yeah.
So it's just that's dope, man.
Yeah, I think when we first talked, I had like an Instagram account, and that was it. And we were just kind of making I was making a couple posts here and there, and it's still small and growing, but with time, with perseverance, with there's challenges. You want to see results fast, as I'm sure you experienced when you started selling coffee. You want those results, you want everything, but if anything worth doing, this is a great quote that I heard. Anything worth doing takes discipline and consistency over time. And in order to stay disciplined, you have to do it and do it and do it, no matter what the result is, and stay consistent with it. And with time, the results will come if you're taking the right action. So that I'm holding true to that. I can tell you've held true to that through everything you've done. And it's cool to see, where you've grown, especially Woodstock Coffee too. So tell me a little bit about, what makes Woodstock Coffee so unique?
Well, that's a really good question, and it's weird because I think there's a lot of people that roast great coffee in Woodstock and around, and I
Mm-hmm.
respect everybody, and I think we all do our part in loving coffee, and I think that's the most important thing that the consumers notice. But I think what makes people gravitate to us is they see the dedication that I have to what I do. I mean, you're going to go anywhere and get good coffee around here, right? The reality of it is they support us because they know what I do, and they know the work that I'm doing, and they know the work that my team's doing. They know that every day when they come there, that somebody is working directly to roast the best coffee possible. I'm working with farmers directly in their home region to bring in coffee at a price that they're getting paid well for, that they're not getting cut short on. And not only am I doing that, but I'm putting money back into exactly what I said I was going to do, which is people that are formerly incarcerated. Those of you that know me, I'm very into helping people of color that were formerly incarcerated, not just people of color, but anybody that was formerly incarcerated, because that's my background. So now I'm able to take, the revenue that people are coming to support me with and hire people and help them change their life and mentor them. And Second Chance Coffee, which is the extension of Woodstock Coffee, is getting geared to launch near at the end of this year, and has a growth plan to continue helping people change their life. So I think for me, like that's what makes Woodstock Coffee kind of this hub of where people are like, you know, I know what I'm supporting when I go there. It's family ran. It's like my wife's in there.
Yep.
You know, I mean, if you go in there, you'll see her every day. I mean, she holds it down, and it's been a huge part of like me being able to do this because I think people assume that if you have a coffee shop, it's just like runs, and you have to have someone like there that cares. And my wife cares.
Yeah.
So you'll
No,
see my
I can
mother-in-law
tell
there.
if you think running a coffee shop is you just sit back and slang coffee and let the revenue fly. I mean, I was in there yesterday and it's like we got to get this, we got to get that. This order didn't come up on the screen. Oh, I'm sorry, you've been waiting. I forgot. Like it's constant.
Oh, and you know what? And I think one of the cool things that I'm learning too is how to remove myself, right? Because I've always wanted to work on my business and not in it. And so even when
Amen.
developing coaches, you know, it's been very important that I jump in enough to know like how things are moving, but enough to step back and let people really kind of learn how they're going to kind of operate things. Because even when I step back into the cafe, I'm good and I love it. I'm more passionate than anyone in that place, but I'm not as good,
Yeah.
you know, and I have to accept that. I'm a good business operator and a great roaster, but I'm not the best if you saw those things that were going down, right? And so you learn to humble yourself and really learn sometimes. So I make sure that I still try to take a shift a week, you know, limited to kind of get in and keep active. And same thing with roasting, you know, teaching intern roasters how to roast and things like that. It's been a great learning curve for me. And so at this point in my life, I am so excited because I'm at a point where I had the young bull, I know everything stage and learned all this, but now I'm at a really growing point in my life. So I think Woodstock Coffee Company, you ask what supports people, I think it's that they understand that we're not out to be bigger or better than anyone. We're just here to kind of do the best that we can do each day, and hopefully people see that. That's it.
Yeah, I love that. How can people? Is it solely brick and mortar? Do you have online sales? How can people get the coffee if they can't go to the shop?
Well, what's cool is, so, you know, and part of that story was I built out of my garage. So we gratefully service a lot of different smaller coffee shops and organizations. So we're partnered with the Cherokee County School District.
Cool.
His Hands Church has used all of our coffee. You have Woodstock City Church that buys us and uses our coffee in and out of their stuff. First Baptist Church in and out of their events. We just do their event side of it. So a lot of these places around the city of Woodstock actually serve our coffee. Some of the smaller places, and then people can buy online. So daily, that's what built a lot of our program was people order from all over the 50 states. So we do subscriptions from here to California to Los Angeles to Seattle to Texas to New York. And so that's another side of it. Yeah. So online has been cool. And then we deliver. So I think
how can they get it online?
If they go on woodstockcoffeecompany.com, they can go on there and like our local people around here. One thing that is cool is if you've ever seen my car, it's like a little Nissan Cube that is like says Woodstock Coffee, we deliver. And part of that vision was, bro, like 7 years ago when I first started, or 10 years ago, I got that car and wrapped it. People were like, why is it saying Team 3? I was like, because I'm going to have 3 cars running around delivering coffee. So now we deliver, but we delivered locally to build up our fan base. Like, so literally we deliver weekly bags of fresh roasted of coffee to people all around Woodstock, like every day.
I need to get on that.
Still, bro, so woodstockcoffeecompany.com, you'll go on, then you'll see like it's weekly. So basically they get a bag each week on their doorstep, and they're just, man, if I'm not on time with that makes the people mad. So.
Yeah, we'll link that in the show notes below for sure. Awesome, man, love it. One more thing I want to talk about is you talked a lot about entrepreneurship, and I think one of the big components of being an entrepreneur is being willing to bet on yourself. And being willing to, say, hey, I'm like you were talking about earlier, I'm passionate about this. I think people can see that passion. But at some point it takes betting on yourself and taking action on that passion. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that mindset on, the ability to say, hey, I have a vision for this. And because of that, and because of my passion for it, I'm gonna kind of set my fears aside and bet on myself because I know what can come of it.
Oh man, that's pretty. I'm gonna be super transparent, people. Like most people, I tell these people, I'm very nonchalant about what it takes to work with nothing and coming from nothing. Okay, I don't come from anyone that has money or anything that comes from that. Everything I have is strictly from what I've created. And so I tell people they all want to take these risks, but they really don't. If I showed them all the things that hadn't got paid or didn't get paid to get to where I'm at now just to fail. So those situations that it took for me to bet on myself are very hard to do. And they take a lot of humility because you fail for a long time. Remember, I started in 2015, right? I lost, bet on myself, lost. And again, like if you were to ever look at any P&L or whatever, you'd probably say, this is crazy. Why would anyone do this? And then years 10, 11, 12 just go crazy, right? And you're like, what? But I was losing so long. So what I tell people about like what it took, like, man, you could look at all the late mortgage payments I had, how many times I almost lost my houses, how many times I almost bet on my, but now when they look at that stuff, they don't want to do that. When they look at the phones that got cut off, when they look at, I got 4 kids, right? So sacrificing what I'm doing have to be really made a lot of sense for me to take from my kids and my family, my wife, right? So I think when people talk about, betting on yourself, it's not just betting on yourself. Like a lot of people think that it's just like all in and that's why, or Hail Mary. And that's not it. That shows irresponsibility. It's betting on yourself with a calculated move to make it make sense, right? And so I think that when you talk about how does that really happen, you've got to take the risks that nobody would want to take. I mean, if entrepreneurship was for everybody, then everyone would be doing it, right? But you have to be able to fail and continue to fail. And I saw this quote, or maybe it was a post or something, man, and I don't even know where it's from, but it just resonated so much with me, man. It was like entrepreneurship is like 95% time just failing. Straight failing every day. You're waking up like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I can't pay this. I can't pay this. Can't pay that. Can't pay it all. What do I do? What do I do? And you just got to do something, do what you can, go to sleep, wake up and try to knock out some more. And they're like, for 95% of your life, it's like that. Then there's like 5% where you're like, win. And you're like, yay, I'm winning. And then it's right back to 95% of that,
Yeah.
And I don't think people really get that. And I think that's so true because even now, right, it's different problems, but I still have to react the same way. And I have to understand that being an entrepreneur is hard work. It's very hard. There's a lot more things I could go do and make a lot more money at quicker than owning my own business, right? If to be real with people, I mean, in the entrepreneurship field, right? I'm talking about I could go work for some pharmaceutical sales and just not even work anything, work part-time and sit at home. But at the end of the day, I love operating. I love what I do. I love growing each day. So I take failure as an opportunity to be better, right? That's the main thing I do. I'm still learning. And my wife will tell you it's challenging for me because I really believe that I'm right. And when we talk, she says, you always have to be right. And I say, well, that's the point of me talking. I'm trying to convince people that I'm right. Like in our arguments, right? Like, why would I be talking to you like if we're in an argument to say I'm wrong? No, I really think I'm right. That's the truth, right? And so I think that with this entrepreneurship thing, man, it's just really taking the failures and learning how you can adjust to make it easier next time for you. And that you're not going to stop failing. It's just adjusting so next time it's a little bit easier to fail, And when you fail, you're like, okay, well, you know what? I learned this from that. And so it's not going to hurt as much. It's going to hurt a little bit, but I can control it and make sure that my emotions are within range to operate this and move to the next step.
Yeah. Good stuff, dude. That's solid. So what's next for you? Where do you see the business going from here? Man. Next endeavors? I know you talked about Second Chance Coffee. What's going on next?
I don't know. So that's what's funny. It's like it's kind of funny because there's a few different things going on. So I got now I'm doing the wholesale stuff with Woodstock Coffee. So I work with coffee shops, which has kind of led me to doing some more consulting work with different cafes and some because again when you're running one and they say, well, how's yours running? I said, I can do that for you. So that's been kind of opportunity that's been kind of new for me is doing some consulting for other coffee shops and helping them get their programs or cafes operating decently. And then for me, Second Chance Coffee is really kind of the be all for me because what it is an opportunity for me to turn this full thing into exactly where it started from, which is just an example of change, a way to create change, a way to be a part of change, right? And a way to really show that like this is possible, And so for me, Second Chance Coffee is coming up next, and that's what really is where we're going to be taking basically all the coffee production that we have and having it teach entrepreneurship skills to people that are formerly incarcerated. So if you can imagine like Like imagine like, like the Girl Scouts are cookies, right? But imagine if we had Second Chance Coffee where it's like every purchase that you're purchasing coffee from is going to help someone that's formerly incarcerated and teach them to be entrepreneurships, financial literacy, making sure they have job skills training, life skills coaching, all the things that's going to take to get them out of that cycle that once tried to break me, right?
Mm.
Because they told me I should just stay, working at Burger King or McDonald's, whatever, and that should be my career path, and that's
Mm.
what they tell these people. When you get out is, hey man, you should try to be in fast food or something that has a long, easy, spot because you have felonies now. And so I just want to be a part of changing people. And I think also what's coming up for me is health and fitness and just being the best person that my creator has called me to be. And I think that's going to show through Second Chance Coffee. So I think Woodstock Coffee is going to in turn expand, which we have, and we've had some great partnerships. But yeah. So in accumulation, Second Chance Coffee is coming up. You have that is probably going to be the end of this year, early 2025, where we actually launch out full out, like big campaign style with that. I have some really awesome people involved I can't divulge crazy amount, but it's gonna be a really big effort. And then, yeah, man. So yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Talk about being purpose driven, having purpose behind what you're doing. That's, I mean, and self-created purpose, you know what I'm saying? Like being able to create something that's going to be the purpose behind what you're doing with Woodstock Coffee, to promote this, to promote the end purpose, to bring it full circle back to, bringing it back to your roots and wanting to help out the person who you were in a previous life.
Well, it's kind of crazy because, as we talk about that full circle of change, it's just like, these are just seasons that each of us go through, and I think that through whatever season somebody's going through, if they can just try to find a way to tap into what their purpose is, it just makes everything else worth it, right? Because now that I found my purpose, or, I've been on this path to get there, and I still am, no matter what I had to do, if I had to go shovel poop, at the end of the day, I would still be doing to work towards my purpose, So I think that, that ever-evolving circle, that versions of ourselves, that we're never going to be the best version of ourselves at all times.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's just not going to happen. Even if you think you're the best version of yourself right now, there's going to be a version that comes up for maybe for a second, it may be for 5 minutes when you yell at somebody, but there's always those moments. And I think that's something that we always got to remember that that these seasons we go through are just a season. And so we just got to be working on being a better person more times.
Love it. Well, Paris, man, I've enjoyed the conversation. I hope you've taken as much value as I have, because there's so much. Main takeaway for me: failure is an opportunity to be better. Man. I love that, dude. Like that's something that you can take, and it's timeless. It's something you can apply to whether if it's business, whether if it's whether if it's your walk with Christ, whether if it's your walk with your wife, whether if it's your physical health. All failure is an opportunity to get better, man. And I love that you said that. I think that's something I'll take away from it for sure.
No, absolutely, man. I appreciate you for having me, man. I am so thankful, man, that we've kept in connection, and that I see you a lot at the shop, and as we continue to grow, man, we'll continue to update people, and we'll both be growing together, man.
100%. We'll link it down in the notes, but one more time, tell the people where they can follow along with Woodstock Coffee and what you're growing.
www.woodstockcoffeecompany.com. Instagram is the Woodstock Coffee Company. At the Woodstock Coffee Company.
Nice.
It's the only one that's at the website's just Woodstock Coffee Company.
Nice. Yeah.
Again, learn it, right?
Yeah.
I was like, y'all been doing a ton with.
Yeah. Y'all been doing a ton with social media growth recently too, so I love to see that. Love to see kind of the push in that direction, and really start to promote the brands, and not only from a local level, but also just from a national perspective, on saying, hey, anyone out there that kind of sees what we're doing can come on and support.
Absolutely, man. And we will, like I said, we're going to support you and all that you're doing, and make sure that we put people your way that are doing great things, and connect with each other on more great opportunities, brother. So yeah,
100%. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Take a Step podcast. If you like it, like, comment, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a rating on whichever platform you're listening to, and we will talk to you in the next episode. Peace.